we had a ton of bench strength, a ton of deep technical research in cryptography. And that can really credentialize yourself when you're having a conversation with Intel, with NVIDIA.
Andrew, welcome. I do want to say that out of all the topics that Hedera is involved in, this is probably the one that people are most excited about. Just to give the viewers a heads up, this is Andrew from EQTY Lab. He is working on a few different projects, but the one we're going to get into today is in the AI space. Andrew, before we get into the main thing, and that's verifiable compute that we're going to be talking about today, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and EQTY Lab?
Absolutely, Brandon. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. So my name is Andrew Stanko. Like you said, I'm on the finance and operations team here at EQTY Lab. We've been in business. We got started, probably founded about almost 3 years ago. So we're doing a lot of AI governance research. Our company was designed to basically, or founded to apply cryptography in these sort of commercial settings and in the ones that we feel like are most important. So like in an enterprise. So that leads us to what we're here to talk about today, which is verifiable compute, our sort of the big product that, tons of people here in the community are extremely excited to like learn more about, and we're excited to tell about. So yeah.
All right. Well,
let's dive in.
Can you just tell us, to start off, what are the problems that EQTY Labs is looking to solve with verifiable compute?
Sure. The big question or problem we're trying to solve is how do you govern, let's say, AI agents, right? These newly autonomous systems, right, or nearly autonomous, as we've seen, how do you govern them? How would an enterprise be able to deploy them reasonably, trust them, right? We need a new sort of paradigm of trust. And verifiable compute came out of a lot of basically many years of research and was the ability for us to, let's say, create a notary that allows you to sort of stamp and like identify and track all the code, all the data that's going in or out of like, let's say, an AI training or AI inference.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I am curious because, as I understand, this solution is going to have your technology and, by extension, Hedera's technology embedded directly in the NVIDIA and Intel chips. Can you explain how verifiable compute works and why it's installed at the hardware level?
Sure. So we feel, I guess, the root of trust, one of the big things we talk about in the company is having that start at the silicon, right? Which means like the farther down it is in the tech stack, the stronger that trust is going to be, right? Instead of having to trust a platform, trusting a service, trusting a person, if you trust that chip, let's say that Intel CPU, that NVIDIA GPU, that feels like that'll give us the strongest foundation for any sort of agent workflow. So basically what we did was, what the team did was they started with, let's say, the Intel TDX, sort of that sort of suite of features, if you're not super familiar with it, that has these sort of like the ability to make these sort of attestations, and then we extended them to the TE of, let's say, an NVIDIA GPU, right? So we basically extended a trust boundary from a CPU to a GPU, right? Like doing that, right, creates this new notary, right, that allows us to again stamp or attest or create tamper-proof proofs and records for all of those various AI workflow operations. The big part that Hedera adds to that is that when you can, let's say, register all of these on on HCS, for example, what we do, that creates a timestamp. And let's say in case of like a cyber attack or something like that, you all of a sudden have like a verifiable build or proof that like, oh, we did this before or we did this after. Hedera provides that key component, right? Which for us, one of the things we also are focused on, let's say, are AI supply chain attacks. One of the big data points again in the company is, let's say that 91%, I'm just going to quote the stat here, right? 91% of organizations have experienced supply chain attacks on traditional software systems. We feel like that's only going to compound and expand and become more severe, let's say, as AI agents permeate like the enterprise, IT infrastructure, right? As you get more and more of them, so you want to quote Jensen and be like, there are going to be 100 million AI agents, right? Or some unfathomable to me 2 years ago about, right? Then you're going to need something like this to make sure that, like, if I'm a CIO, I want to be able to trust that, like, they're all going to, like, I can sleep at night. So, yeah.
So I'm also curious about how an entity like EQTY Lab establishes relationships with these tech giants like NVIDIA and Intel. How did that relationship come about?
Great question. So I'd say there are two components, right? One is, so before EQTY, there had been a ton of research, right? Jonathan, our founder, let's say at Stanford, like had advisors there. So we had a ton of bench strength, a ton of deep technical research in cryptography. And that can really credentialize yourself when you're having a conversation with Intel, with NVIDIA. Because the big thing with startups is that you're sort of fighting against indifference. Everyone's like, that's great, but who are you? Kind of exactly to your point. So having that deep experience, being able to talk extensively and thoroughly about those topics really was a tremendous asset, like as we were developing the tech and as we were pitching it for the first time.
One of the things that the Hedera community can do is they'll try to pull on threads and pick up breadcrumbs wherever they can find them. And we noticed in one of the promotional clips for Verifiable Compute, I think that was put out by Hedera, the computer that was used was a Dell computer. Is there any involvement from Dell computers in this collaboration at all?
So I'd say that's the second part of the two-part, the 1-2 punch of having that deep technical expertise, of which, don't worry, I'm not that person. I just work with them. But the Hedera community, we got to know Dell through Hedera, through the ecosystem, right, and the community. So I'll just plug, if Dave Fertura ever listens to this, thank you so much, because that first Verifiable Compute node that you see there, right, that's a modified Dell box that we got through our relationship with them, which we got to know through the community, right? It was fantastic. We modified it. I mean, that's the one thing I did do. I did put the H100 in there myself. It's very funny if you go through TSA and they rip out an H100. That's what we knew. So I think that that's a tremendous asset and advantage of the ecosystem of Hedera. It's one of the reasons that we really love it. Like the governing council, having this diverse suite of enterprises that you can go talk to, it's just amazing.
The next thing I want to touch on here is it's so hard to determine what we could be talking about in terms of scale, but people, when they see NVIDIA, they get excited about things like that. How is Verifiable Compute initially going to come to market, and how do you expect it to grow?
Good question. So one of the things is we'll have more to talk about soon, since a lot of, you'll see like a lot of it, we have a conference that we're initially going to be sharing more. But to summarize just succinctly, it's basically choose the right domains and choose the right partners for the go-to-market. And the right domains, it's life sciences, it's the public sector, it's finance. So those sort of clients that are basically in the right topics, working on high-risk AI implementations. The people where if I'm going to deploy an AI agent, I really want to know like how I really need to have that sort of certainty that I can trust what's going on. So that's sort of the go-to-market plan, I'd say that way. Work with the right clients, work on interesting projects like lighthouse implementations, and then grow from there.
What's the timeline look like? I don't know where you are as far as proof of concept or pilot, and how close you are to actually coming to market. So what's your timeline look like?
Great question. So more to share soon, because imminently we're heading to RSA, a big cybersecurity conference, on Monday. We were announced as a finalist right earlier in the month here in April. So we'll be sharing more of that, of like that timeline, the robustness of the product there. I just can't, in the spirit of the competition, because we want to win, because it is a pitch, it is a top 10 pitch. We can share more that way, right? In terms of the product, but we have been working with customers, let's say across those 3 domains, right, to implement our technology. So that's been great. That's been super challenging. It's always fantastic when you talk to customers and you're realizing their problems and sort of validating or testing what you thought was the right thing. So, yeah.
It must be absolutely fascinating to be working in the crossroads of DLT technology and AI. So these are 2 exponential technologies that are coming out. Is there anything else that you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
Sure, absolutely. So it absolutely is. I did not think. When I started at the company, right, I did not know I was going to be at the crossroads of AI, like you said, and DLT, and that's been fantastic to try to realize the promises and the potential of both technologies. But like on a more personal note, so we're at conferences a lot of times. We'll be at RSA on Monday in the Moscone Center in San Francisco. I didn't realize this is recorded, but if you're there, come stop by and say hi. But also in the future, we're always there, at conferences, often co-presenting, co-hosting with Hedera, with you. But please stop by, say hello. We love talking about all these topics. We love sharing like what we know. So that would be my big offer. If you stop me, say hi. Love to chat.
It's one of the things that I really enjoy is going to these different conferences and meeting people face to face. It seems like a lot gets done when we're going through those conversations. But Andrew, we appreciate everything that you and EQTY Lab are doing around the Hedera ecosystem and, of course, bringing some of these other big players in. We appreciate you coming on today, and good luck.
Brandon, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
I'm now posting these interviews of Hedera builders independently to my channel. The community, influencers, and media outlets are free to use this content to spread the word on what's being built on Hedera. Once they're all uploaded, you'll be able to go to my channel and search for whatever topic or team you're interested in to find more information. Or you'll be able to get the most recent Hedera news by watching the latest HBAR Weekly update. So check them out.